As we told you earlier, there will be a lot to talk about during Secretary of State Clinton's visit to Mexico. Joining us to help make sense of her trip is Christopher Sabatini, the Senior Director of Policy for the Council of the Americas and an expert on Latin American affairs. Good to have you back.
Thanks, Martin.
The United States announced a major initiative yesterday to increase security along the U.S. Mexican border. How much of that will really help end the drug violence?
Well, the basis of the drug violence is really the U.S. consumption of drugs. 90% of the narcotics that pass through Mexico are destined to the U.S. market. The U.S. has to get a handle on its own drug consumption. But second of all, the violence is in large part fueled by the shipment of U.S. guns south of the border. There are 6,600 gun shops set up along the U.S. Mexican border, which do little more than cater to narcotics traffickers and their need for weapons. The U.S. has to get control of this, and many of these 500 agents that are being placed on the border are actually being placed there to control the flow of goods, including money and guns, south of the border. So it's a step in the right direction, but this is also a domestic issue for the United States.
The concern, of course, over Mexico's drug war is very high in the United States, and I know it's a concern in Mexico, but do Mexican leaders have other concerns they want to talk about?
Of course. We have a very full and broad agenda with Mexico, and really this is one of the few times when I think we're dealing with it in all of its complexity. We have Hillary Clinton going down this week, and then we have the Attorney General, as well as Janet Napolitano and President Obama. And they're going to be looking at a number of issues. One of them is obviously narcotics and the war against drugs. The second is immigration. And really what we're looking at is a different way of addressing immigration. In the past, under President Bush, immigration was dealt with as a domestic issue, and immigration reform failed. Immigration, primarily with Mexico, is a bilateral issue. It must be dealt with by both countries, and that's going to be front and center on the table. The third one is trade. President Obama, during the campaign, talked about renegotiating NAFTA, and that sent chills down the spine of the Mexican leadership. But right now we're in the midst of a very small trade war that's going on between Mexico and the United States, in which they slapped tariffs on 89 U.S. products simply because we suspended a program that allowed Mexican trucks to enter the border, which was allowed under the NAFTA treaty. So that's going to have to be there, and we have to resolve that quickly.
You sense that this administration has a new approach to Mexico, then? Obviously, by what we see is the importance, the significance of what's happening.
Very much so. First of all, President Obama met with President Calderon before he was inaugurated, and now he's going to meet with him a second time. I think that's the only case of the president that he's met with him twice. And you see, again, multiple cabinet-level meetings and multiple issues that are being dealt with.
But
and
also
this is being dealt with as partnership.
A realization that we're part of the problem here.
Precisely. And you hear this coming out from the administration, and you also hear a real sense of partnership. Our relationship with Mexico in the past, particularly in drugs, was primarily to send some weapons down there, train a few agents, and then be done with it. And if it went awry, well, we'll just wag our finger and shrug, walk away. We're really in for a penny, in for a pound with them right now. We are truly partners on this combating drugs issue and combating violence in Mexico.
Christopher Sabatini, as always, thank you very much for joining us.
It's a pleasure.